actions.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
The side of the federal building has been blown off, Jesse.
They believe they were part of a CIA project called MK Ultra.
Just like a segment of society that is not living in reality.
In a certain sense, we're kind of a little bit more Israel's vassal state.
There are police chiefs facilitating prostitution networks.
Do you understand? It's all in your head. It's your move.
What up, everybody? Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Dump with Austin Picard from the Underclass Podcast. My God. So it looks like we all just better, I don't know, just go to space like the celebs, right? I mean, come on. Is this crazy we are here on this planet? Absolutely. How are you guys doing this morning? Yeah, it kind of started on time. I'm still technically, it's okay. We shoot for 7, but it doesn't always happen. I know Jose and I stayed up a little late doing a pretty detailed Waco episode, just kind of covering back sort of highlighting and spotlighting the details of really one of the best examples of what your government is capable of, obviously. So what's up, King David? How you guys doing this morning? Bobo McHoa, the real D Ford, Sloppy Toppy, everybody's here. What's up, guys? Lance Ripa, man, I feel so much better knowing the stars are just Katy Perry's dandruff. I love it. Look, as Sam Tripoli said, they didn't go to space. This is a retard test. So everybody just get in line and remind yourselves, from PSYOP to mind war, the psychology of victory. and remember the fact that nobody's going to space. It's all fake and gay. Exactly. Conspiracy Carpenter knows what's up. Love you too, brother. Man. But yeah, hey, it was a good one. We definitely had a good conversation about Waco last night. I was trying I definitely was doing my best because to not entirely derail the conversation from what our attempted structured conceptual outline was going to be, which obviously was just a huge reflection back on obviously the ultimate injustice that took place, but still it's I kind of leaped down a rabbit hole that I was very much unexpecting to find another wrinkle in a potential alternative theory with Waco, but I don't want to we'll discuss that later at a certain point whenever I think Jose and I are actually going to follow that up with another episode, potentially call it Waco Weirdness or something, and explore a few additional details that I was unaware of, honestly, until just recently, although I have heard many rumors. And yeah, but anyway, so we won't get into that. But oh man, take it easy, guys. So hey, say what now? Good morning. What's up, dog? Spew your hot fire for the YouTube. Hell yeah, buddy. So here is what I think is hilarious. I guess we could start off with this Blue Origin flight, and hey, chill, Jacob. don't do this to me. I can't discuss this right now. This is but hey, as much as I would love to. We'll get into it later at a later time. But anyway, I had obligated this story basically. But anyway, so here's the deal. I thought YT meant white people. Oh yeah, you're probably right. I don't know. I'm retarded. What's up, the real John Doe? So more proof, obviously, that space is entirely fake and gay, and this Blue Origin flight sending an all-female crew, again, not into space, right? Which is another just hilarious misconception. But I know. Hey, two Zionists, one cup. There is so much that we could get into regarding certain details that really do create, an extraordinary underlying layered agenda that potentially was playing out. And again, it mirrors a lot of what you can imagine happened at Jonestown, but still. So for now, I think obviously we have stolen elections in Ecuador, which this guy is apparently some CIA Mossad-backed drug trafficker, which makes a lot of sense. And and then obviously we have to find our way to kind of discuss a little bit more of the obvious violations of well, first of all, just these threats of sending that Trump is claiming he's going to send American criminals to foreign prisons. So just more constitutional violations and precedent-setting notions taking place here. And then obviously Palantir's Maven Smart System is another topic we'll have to kind of really just break down and pick apart what exactly the strategic capabilities are and why this NATO partnership with Palantir is just kind of par for the course with this. Obviously, what was already very much in place with the Silicon Valley ties to the military-industrial complex, right? So, but it's just, and then of course we have Trump. FDA fast tracks this mRNA vaccine for H5N1 for the bird flu to phase 1 trials, and this is very disturbing because this is it's again very much new age technology in its infancy in many ways, but very sophisticated in what it will achieve. And we'll get a little bit of an anti-war update out of the way as well. So first, I would say we could go ahead and let's start with Katy Perry and her basically her what is it, the divine feminine? What did she claim that she was experiencing with this hilarious trip on the Blue Origin? By the way, did you guys see apparently Jeff Bezos potentially tripped and fell on live television, which I think is also hilarious if it was actually live. But anyway, so the way that this was put, the Baphomet logo on their spacesuit, I did notice that it was definitely being highlighted. I was trying to isolate it a little bit better to get a clearer view, but yeah, it's very clear that they just kind of invert these symbols and fill them in with some, just detailed nuance that will kind of draw away and distract the average person from being able to kind of witness that symbolism playing out. But yeah, listen to this woman and tell me that this actually took place and this isn't some sort of press opportunity and marketing ploy. How you doing, PJR? Yeah, bro, thank the rocket. Yeah, I have to get that clip of Bezos after he comes back from his trip. That was one of the funniest clips, man. But hold on, let's see. We got a Rolling Stone piece. I don't know why we would actually break down this Origin flight, but it is kind of hilarious because again, this is an all-female Blue Origin crew, and talking about protecting the planet right? And so let's listen in to Katy Perry.
And then you're feeling the love when you come down for sure. And you're feeling it is the
I love the way that that this that Milo actually kind of described this, right, as an ayahuasca experience, and the phrasing that they're using, these words, it's obviously like, I don't know, it's very difficult for me. I understand it's more like how you would detail an out of body experience, but this is just, I don't know, I don't know, I hate to use the word cringe, but I will say that it's the most off-putting way to kind of behave, right? As far as just the way Katy Perry and people of her ilk.
it is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknown, trust, and this whole journey is not just about going to space. It's the training, it's the team, it's the whole thing. I couldn't recommend this experience more. This is like up there with all the, different tools that I've learned in my life, from meditation to the Hoffman process. This is up there because what you're doing is you're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down for sure. And you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong divine feminine right now.
By the way, you're such a
Divine
badass. I love
feminine.
that the month of April, you're like, I'm going to space and I'm launching my tour.
It is the highest high.
Wow. All right. Well, that was a complete and total waste of our time. I apologize. It's just too funny, man. I had to pull it up because this is, this is the paradigm that we live in, right? that people embrace as reality. I mean, as if it's an actual potential feasible. I don't know. Me personally, I cannot stand the celebrity class, right? And especially they're just manufactured personalities to influence public perception. So in every way, they are soulless and spiritually corrupt and hollowed out. So you can see it, the divine feminine. Man, it's go look at what Lady Gaga was doing at Coachella and tell me she wasn't performing some summoning ritual of some kind, and is just, again, influencing just young malleable, vulnerable minds that embrace this the celebrity nature of just the culture in general, and very much are kind of like, I was a part of that, just not knowing any better as a young person, and idolizing various individuals that clearly left me with a corrupt foundation morally. I had no real principles of any kind worthwhile. I had no understanding of who I was becoming. And I was in the midst of an identity crisis, and I didn't, unbeknownst to myself, right? And that seems to kind of be the profile that most people, unfortunately, it's just, hey man, thank you, brother. Found me from TFH with Sam Tripoli. That's my brother. But yeah, these are disinformation agents, absolutely. And yeah, her and Bernie Sanders both at Coachella. Man, what kind of world are we living in? It's just absolutely crazy. But meanwhile, we have another violation of the First Amendment. And obviously, this authoritarian crackdown on free speech is, it's just out in front for all to see. The emperor has no clothes at this moment. It's just, have you fallen into the two-party delusion? Are you in the ideological prison? Are you going to be able to sift through, again, just the deceptive predictive programming that's very well put into place. And yeah, it's a difficult prospect, but I know that kind of at least seeing people like um just having someone worthwhile criticizing Trump's values and at least policies regarding free speech. Yeah, it's nice to see Napolitano and people of that nature who are at least somewhat principally sound. You would think it, at least it seems that way. And so he kind of spouted off explaining this authoritarian crackdown, and I really appreciated that fact as well because it was an interesting just aside, and again mentioning that fact that Trump's doubling down essentially on deporting individuals that are including U.S. citizens, right? So that alone, it's just really something worth acknowledging because this is again, it's another violation. Yeah, weaponizing free speech, using these false conceptions and misconceptions and false narratives for justifications. And but yeah, I understand like it's just the notion of punishing a violent criminal, right? But not understanding, the constitutional violations that are clearly, as far as just pursuing this dystopian, just again, they're infringing on these inherent rights on a daily basis, and it just witnessing this play out is very much a disturbing conceptual prospect here. So that is why looking at what Trump had to say in the Oval Office, it is disturbing, right? So listening and as far as his not only doubling down, it's basically the fourth time he's warned us that he's willing to deport not only obviously uh it's just he's willing to deport US citizens. That's the ultimate concept we need to understand.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens fully naturalized immigrants?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What do you think? There's a special category of person. They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too, and I'm all for it because we can do things with the president for less money and have great security. And we have a huge prison population. We have a huge number of prisons, and then we have the private prisons, and some are operated well, I guess, and some aren't. But he does a great job with that. We have others that we're negotiating with too. But no, if it's a homegrown criminal, I have no problem. Now, we're studying the laws right now. Pam is studying. If we can do that, that's good. And I'm talking about violent people. I'm talking about really bad people, every bit as bad as the ones coming in. And I made the statement when I heard about this a long time ago now, 4 years ago, when I heard that this guy was having open borders, I said, every single criminal from all over the world is going to be dumped into our country. And that's
Now the immigration crisis will be utilized to justify another constitutional violation, and that is seemingly the playbook recycled over time and continually achieves, the end result that they are obviously pursuing. So this is the fourth time that he has legitimately revealed the fact that he's willing, obviously, to send Americans to foreign prisons. So that is definitely something worth understanding. Is just another potential precedent-setting notion here. And then Judge Knapp. It's anyway. Listen to this clip because it's at the very least a very worthwhile criticism.
In some respects, it's just as bad now, the authoritarianism that is coming, Gerald. I am really, really fearful for the President of the United States of America to suggest, as he did on Air Force One on Sunday night, that American citizens could be deported, for his press secretary to say, we're looking into a way to see if this is legal. We don't know if it's legal or not. A, is terrifying. B, betrays such a profound ignorance of first principles to which he is sworn. He is sworn to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to enforce federal law. Before we came on air, I was telling you about an American lawyer on vacation with his family flying back to Detroit, where they live, and stopped at the Detroit International Airport and held up by Border Patrol for 2 hours, refusing to surrender his phone because, quote, we know you represent Palestinians. And eventually they backed down and let him go. But that type of intimidation, that type of chilling was actually under arrest. And arrest is defined as you're not free to leave, is profoundly un-American, utterly unconstitutional, and I'm sorry to say is coming.
Damn. So you heard it here. I mean, it's definitely. What's up, Helper Crow? How you doing, brother? JMS. This podcast is a part of the process of rebalance and restructuring communities around objective information and a desire of actual progress instead of aesthetics, blackmail, and dark magic. My brother, thank you so much, man. I will say, just, are we not witnessing a pattern? Like, it's just, it's not anything that I really take much pleasure in. It's just, if I don't laugh, man, I mean, what else are we going to do? Obviously. So, we basically just have to find the fun, you know, and find each other, find like-minded individuals who are objectively pursuing that truth, and hopefully surround ourselves with people pursuing similar principles, you know, who have their soul intact and have at least their own best interest at heart, as well as their family, you know, which in my mind, that doesn't mean that you're selfish, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to isolate those foundational principles to really understand them for yourself. But only then can you begin to kind of defend against the psychology of victory and the mind war techniques that have very much been sophisticated over time. So at a point where I think, again, it's very impossible. It's basically impossible for us to conceptually grasp what they're capable of in many ways, and that includes, you know, suggestive hypno-programming techniques that are very much out of this world. You would think you're reading a science fiction novel. It's extraordinary in nature, but from here we can basically go into, because honestly, the really what matters here is that Trump is doubling down and on sending American criminals to foreign prisons, claiming homegrowns are next. And this was obviously when he's sitting down with the El Salvadorian president, and he wanted to allegedly send these homegrown criminals to his country next. And so these comments came as Trump welcomed the president, a key partner in his migrant deportations, to the White House amid controversy over the Supreme Court saying the administration should facilitate the return of a migrant from Maryland wrongfully sent to a notorious Salvadorian mega prison. So this is an ABC News article, but really just what matters most is, once again, his claim of homegrown criminals are next. Anyway, I said homegrowns are next, the homegrowns. You got to build about 5 more places. It's not big enough, he claims. So that is the future of our prison industrial complex. And for now, we can essentially just, I would say, leave that and pivot into a little bit more of, before we get into the military system, the AI military system that was just provided by Palantir to NATO. I think we should at the very least briefly discuss a little bit of foreign policy and mention in passing this unfortunate reality of the fast tracking of this H5N1 bird flu to phase 1 trials, which again, this is a designation for a self-amplifying mRNA vaccine. Okay. And once again, self-amplifying mRNA. And so that was reported by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, obviously, which granted the fast track designation to this ARCT-2304, which is the self-amplifying mRNA vaccine candidate developed by Arcturus Therapeutics, targeting the H5N1 avian influenza virus. This designation, announced on April 10th under the Trump administration, aims to expedite the review process for drugs intended for serious or life-threatening conditions. So it's exactly the same precedent-setting notion as we had discussed prior to this, in regard to the right hand of at HHS of RFK Jr. So, obviously, utilizing this self-replicating mRNA platform designed to enhance the immune response with smaller doses, this technology, part of Arcturus STAR next-generation mRNA vaccines, can be freeze-dried and stored in refrigerators. And so again, we are heading on in the wrong direction as far as public health is concerned, and so this is all based on this alleged, global health risk from the bird flu, which obviously was a manufactured crisis to begin with, and the culling of poultry was all, by design, and so. Anyway, meanwhile, on the foreign policy front, we are bombing the hell out of Yemen. And, Israel is growing concerned. As we had discussed yesterday, there was a first round of negotiations and that had allegedly gone well, according to reports, between Iran and the U.S. And but it turns out that obviously those protests took place, and the protests were calling for a regime change operation in Iran and using the Shah's son. And then you have Israel coming out with this report claiming that they're concerned because of the U.S. briefing them over the direct nuclear talks with Iran. So it is very possible that this is just very much a part of kind of, it's hard to tell what is a limited hangout and what is actual policy, right? So again, the U.S. has informed Israel of its negotiations with Iran over the country's nuclear program, and obviously Iran is not pursuing a nuclear program of any kind, and this is the new Arab that was ran at antiwar.com and published there, and basically explains that obviously, according to the Hebrew language Walla news site on Monday, a senior Israeli official and a source familiar with the details, both unnamed, reported that White House envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, spoke by phone on Sunday with Israeli Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer and briefed him on the talks with Iran. American officials expressed the White House's satisfaction with the outcome of the first round of talks with Iran, indicating that the discussions proceeded according to plan and achieved the desired result, transitioning from indirect talks to direct dialogue with the Iranians. The Trump administration's negotiators stated that the U.S. wants to see whether the Iranians will soon agree to take steps that demonstrate a move away from nuclear weapons. A knowledgeable source said one such step might be reducing Iran's stockpile of enriched uranium to 60%, which could be sufficient to make 6 nuclear bombs. The second round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran is expected to be held in Rome on Saturday. And 2 sources familiar with the matter spoke to the American news site Axios. Omani mediators are expected to be present regardless of the location. There were contradictory statements made because the Iranians pointed out during the talks with U.S. President Donald Trump, who withdrew from the agreements Iran had signed with the U.S., they expressed concern that this could happen again. So obviously, when Trump withdrew from the original Iranian nuclear deal that was put forward by the Obama administration, who told Israeli media and explained to Israeli media that they had to essentially placate the Saudis, right? So it's anyway, it's very interesting stuff, but you go into the details of why this was the Iranian nuclear deal. It's hilarious that he's back at the table trying to essentially negotiate a very similar idea or concept, so that he initially had withdrew from. So I'm not exactly sure what exactly is going to be the end result here, but typically, there's I don't know about the art of the deal in this context, because it seems like the ultimate goal is a military escalation and conflict with Iran. So again, this is obviously due to Trump administration's continued military threats that they claim. These contradictory statements are obviously concerning. So you cannot claim to be negotiating while simultaneously applying pressure and issuing threats. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghai, I don't fucking know, said. So Baghai suggested that the talks on Saturday will therefore not be indirect, as direct talks at this stage would not be effective or beneficial. While other reports have identified Rome as the location of the talks, he suggested the location of the talks has not yet been decided. So it sounds like we're getting, a very manicured perspective in the West in regard to kind of the negotiation playing out in general, because obviously, according to this ministry spokesperson for the Iranian Foreign Ministry, none of this sounds like it's actually playing out in any sort of optimistic way. But the bottom line, apparently, because according to he even apparently contradicted the U.S.'s claims that the meeting in Oman between Witkoff and Araghchi lasted 45 minutes, saying the meeting lasted only a few minutes. However, the bottom line, according to both of them, the Iranian and American sources, is that there's a consensus that a path forward allows for progress can be established with further talks, and that both sides are willing to enter into negotiations. So, who knows? It seems like just further escalation and a little bit of convenient messaging for the current administration in in the U.S. because, once again, Israel fears Iran is close to developing a nuclear bomb and worries that Iraqchi might manipulate the Americans. So these fears are compounded by the belief that Trump may opt for a weak compromise over confrontation. Haaretz reported that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu dreads such a deal, but may be forced to accept it quietly and is likely hoping the negotiations collapse. So I'm sure there's much happening behind the scenes to disrupt these negotiations, which very much we kind of pointed out yesterday as a potential reality. So last week, Trump obviously again threatened Iran with not just U.S. but also Israeli military attacks if the country doesn't acquiesce to its demands. If it requires military, we're going to have military. Israel will obviously be very much involved in that, be the leader of that, Trump said on Wednesday when asked what would happen if the talks with Iran fail. So, yeah, it seems like we're just consistently escalating in terms of this conflict. So, not at all shocking, but at the very same time, we have Zelensky going on 60 Minutes, which is just hilarious to me because Zelensky, he's just entirely disrupting any sort of good faith negotiation whatsoever with Russia in the first place here, and blaming Putin all the while as the culprit for acting in bad faith. So he says on the 60 Minutes interview, and this is Kyle Ans, he says that basically Russian talking points were winning over the White House and called on Trump to visit Ukraine. He says, I believe sadly Russian narratives are prevailing in the U.S. How is it possible to witness our losses and our suffering, to understand what the Russians are doing, and to still believe that they are not the aggressors, that they did not start this war? This is what Zelensky says to Scott Pelley. This speaks to the enormous influence of Russia's information policy on America, on U.S. politics, and on U.S. politicians. Trump was critical of Zelensky after returning to the White House in January, obviously even calling him a dictator, and said the Ukrainian leader was a barrier to ending the war in his country, which is definitely playing out. But is that by design? I do not know. So the tensions between Zelensky and Trump exploded during an infamous Oval Office sit-down in February. Following that meeting, Zelensky's ordered out of the White House, and Trump did not sign a proposed mineral agreement with Kiev. Additionally, Trump temporarily paused U.S. military and intelligence support for Ukraine, briefly. Weighing in on that Oval Office dispute, Zelensky tells 60 Minutes that Vice President J.D. Vance's perspective was a notable change from the Joe Biden administration. It's a shift in tone, a shift in reality. Really, yes, a shift in reality. And I don't want to engage in the altered reality that is being presented to me. He added, first and foremost, we did not launch an attack to start the war. It seems to me that the vice president is somehow justifying Putin's actions. This guy, man. So, in recent weeks, the Trump administration appeared to be sort of turning its frustrations toward Moscow with a little bit more of an aggressive approach to the negotiations. But Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they warned the Russians that they must engage in a ceasefire within weeks. And that was very strategic, as we pointed out as well prior on the show. But just as far as militarily, they really didn't hold much of the advantage strategically on the battlefield as far as the Western allies are concerned. And so Russia didn't really have too much of an incentive to come to the table other than to end the conflict itself. And so Kiev re-entered into talks with Washington on a deal to repay the U.S. for aid using the profits from Ukrainian natural resources. Zelensky noted the change in Trump's attitude during the interview. But in the Trump administration, U.S. aid has all but stopped. Last month, the White House announced partial ceasefires, but they haven't happened, and now Trump says he's losing patience with Putin, he explained. This is Zelensky's words. Zelensky went on to suggest that Trump's perspective on providing weapons and other support for Ukraine may change if he visited the country. We want you to come, and I think to come and to see. You think you understand what's going on here. Okay, we respect your position. You understand, he continued, but please, before any kind of decisions, any kind of forms of negotiations, come to see people, civilians, warriors, hospitals, churches, children destroyed or dead. Come look, and then let's move with a plan for how to finish the war. You will understand with whom you have a deal. I mean, this guy really feels like he has some sort of advantage. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's difficult for me to help Procro says, what do you think, in my opinion, is actually happening here? Yeah, it is a massive money laundering scheme for sure, Maximus Beardsley. That is a huge part of it. And even FTX, obviously was proven they were kind of utilizing this as a plausible piggy bank to launder the DNC contributions and things of that nature. But yeah, it also consider, those very well established medical facilities and that were obviously intelligence black sites as far as what they were conducting at these sites, and they were very much being targeted strategically. And but I will say it's difficult because there are warring factions playing out in DC to a certain level, because it's always considered as the highest level of organized crime. So it's just kind of picking and choose who gets to pick and choose the winners and losers of the next 4 years of the economy sort of situation, where you kind of fall more to the back of the line if you aren't quite in the good graces of some of the more prominent political puppets of the time. But it's still about what can you do for me, and the exploitation of the public perception at all times, which is why we see these political puppets obviously performing on cue, and then seemingly believing that the cameras aren't rolling and revealing the unfortunate reality, which is the fact that they truly get along, and that this is political theater at a real extraordinary level. And so it's always difficult for me to assess, just the reality of what is theater and what is realistically playing out on the world stage. And I do think that we've shown in the past we're very willing to sacrifice these regime change puppets that we put into place in these proxy war conflicts. And so I don't know, maybe Zelensky will be one of the more recent examples of an asset sacrificed at the altar of the imperial war machine, right? I mean, truly. But yeah, it's difficult to kind of assess whether this is really just messaging in many ways, and they want to consistently pursue this conflict for just the war as a racket aspect of the boondoggle in itself, right? I mean, how much money, and not only that, the corrupt nature, the human trafficking. I mean, you look at the rates of human trafficking just skyrocketed. It's like Ukraine's like the hub, ground zero right now of where a lot of these, so many of because again, you have this destabilized nation just kind of ripe and vulnerable, so vulnerable to be targeted in that very way. So yeah, in my mind, yeah, rip Gaddafi. Yeah, for real. And so I mean, and I'll never forget the the look on Gaddafi's face, man, when they're anally raping him with a dagger in the street after they grab him out of his caravan of vehicles. And I'm not sure if it's accurate, but I know the legendary statement that he allegedly made was, "What have I ever done to you?" And that's at the I don't know what followed. The West brought slavery back to Africa. I mean, it's like in modern day, right? And that's just, again, how many times do we need to witness? This is a global death cult, right? And shout out William Ramsey. But it really is. And I'm not sure how many of these people are actually good faith actors, man. It doesn't seem that way. Thank you so much, Adam Tom Tom Bobby, my brother. And yes, the world is so openly corrupt. Yeah. Man, I hope to God that Joe Rogan is not controlled opposition, but it feels that way. As much as I hate to say that, but I hope. I've tried so hard to kind of conceptually excuse, well, just he could potentially be a victim of his own and his own of his own environment, of his own success in a bubble, really kind of trusting the intelligence community far too much. But I used to lose my mind when he would bring on guys like Mike Baker, these spooks that are just completely full of shit in their assessment of foreign policy on the world stage. They're hawkish as hell, and it's just very unfortunate to witness on such a, just an influential. But anyway, it's okay. It's just, I don't know how comfortable I am with as far as once CIA, always CIA, in my opinion. So there's a secret agenda playing out at all times, in my mind, especially if you're kind of leveraging a major influential platform to your benefit. Yeah, there's a reason, right? So, but here's what we can, and what, by the way, Ron Paul, this was legitimately written today, right? And he says, standing at the edge of the Iran war cliff. And this is, at the very least, again, I've mentioned before, anytime that Ron Paul has something to say, I take him seriously. And so what he has to say about the Iran war is that millions of people around the world were at the edge of their seats over the weekend, waiting to hear whether Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff's indirect talks with the Iranian foreign minister would ratchet down tensions or would break down and bring on a major Middle East war. If it seems bizarre that the outcome of a meeting between a U.S. president's designated negotiator and a foreign government minister could determine whether we plunge into possibly our biggest war since World War II, that's because it is bizarre. In fact, this is an excellent example of why our founders were so determined to keep war-making authority out of the executive branch of government. No one person, much less his aide, should have the power to take this country to war. That is why the Constitution places the authority to go to war firmly and exclusively in the hands of the representatives of the people, the U.S. Congress. After all, it is the U.S. people who will be expected to fight the wars and to pay for the wars and to bear the burden of the outcome of the wars. When that incredible power is placed in the hands of one individual, even if that individual is elected, the temptation to use it is far too great. Our founders recognized this weakness in the system they were rebelling against. Yep. Man. Absolutely. That is just a brilliant way to kind of stage this, right? But yes, it's they recognize this weakness, and that is exactly what they were rebelling against, the British monarchy. So they wisely corrected it when they drafted the Constitution. Unless the U.S. is under direct attack or is facing imminent direct attack, the Constitution requires Congress to deliberate, discuss, and decide whether a conflict or potential conflict is worth bringing the weight of the U.S. military to bear. They wanted it harder, not easier, to take us to war. When wars can be started by presidents with no authority granted by Congress, the results can be the kinds of endless military engagements with ever-shifting, unachievable objectives, such as we've seen in Afghanistan and Iraq. We are currently seeing another such endless conflict brewing with President Trump's decision to start bombing Yemen last month. The stated objectives to end Houthi interference with Israeli Red Sea shipping are not being achieved. So, as usually happens, the bombing expands and creates more death and destruction for the civilian population. In the last week or so, U.S. bombs have struck the water supply. U.S. bombs have struck the water supply facilities for 50,000 civilians and have apparently blown up a civilian tribal gathering. Obviously, that was very much covered and went viral of that unfortunate, basically snuff film. So, starting a war with Iran was the furthest thing from the minds of American voters last November. And certainly, those who voted for Donald Trump were at least partly motivated by his promise to end current wars and start no new wars. However, there is a strange logic that to fulfill the promise of no new wars, the U.S. must saber rattle around the world to intimidate others from crossing the White House. This is what the recycled phrase, peace through strength, seems to have come to mean. But the real strength that it takes to make and keep peace is the strength to just walk away. It is the strength to stop meddling in conflicts that have nothing to do with the United States. That is where Congress comes in. Except they are not coming in. They are nowhere to be found. And that is not a good thing. Ron Paul, man. Hit the like button, everybody. Subscribe, share, comment. Yeah, another war for the Zionists. Yeah. And yes, Congress definitely colludes for perpetual warfare. Absolutely. What's up, brother? Love you, Jose. Zephyr Libs. My free speech law is simple. To accept hate speech laws, the lawgiver must give me corresponding laws for ears. Such as how would he react to his wife on period or crying kids saying insane. What the fuck? War machines. 4chan got hacked, huh? Interesting. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, because they're all owned by AIPAC, says PJR. War is the health of the state. No doubt. My God, guys. That is definitely just for me standing at the edge of the Iran war cliff. That is a beautiful statement made by Ron Paul. But anyway, now we'll get into really, I would say, maybe we'll start with the stolen election in Ecuador and then pivot to obviously Palantir's Maven Smart system, the AI military system, because that was a major contract and it will be integrated into NATO. So obviously, the implications of this are pretty extraordinary. And but this is kind of a hilarious thing. Well, I mean, not hilarious. It's tragic and it's par for the course. But again, as far as just fitting a pattern and recycled tactics being observed, this stolen election in Ecuador, seen by Daniel Noboa, appears to have apparently stolen Ecuador's election, and he's the son of Miami, as far as now poised to cement control of the system that has benefited drug cartels and multinational corporations, including his family business. And so the Gray Zone reported on this. We'll cover it here in a moment. But I thought it was hilarious because Boltzmann Booty was tweeting about this. 12 Ball on Twitter was tweeting about this and was like, had originally said, what fraction of Latin American leaders since, say, 1950 have been CIA Mossad-backed cocaine trafficking dictators? This guy is a CIA Mossad-backed cocaine trafficking dictator beloved by Eric Prince. It's just too perfect. What is up, Julie Camardella? She says, hey everyone, recently watched TFH Gladio episode, new fan. Awesome. Welcome. And but check this out, because this is very funny. So he's son of, obviously he's 37 as well, but son of a billionaire, banana magnate, defeated his leftist rival Luisa Gonzalez in a runoff vote. And apparently this individual, this is very strange, but the family company of Ecuador's President Noboa is dealing coke to Europe while arranging for the U.S. to occupy the country to fight drug traffickers. Memos from WikiLeaks also showed that the State Department, CIA, was trying to install his dad as president of Ecuador over 20 years ago. So there we go. Again, it's like how many times we're seeing the son of the Shah from like 50 years ago claim he's like, now's the time. We have to. The people want me. We have to overthrow the Iranian leadership, and I'm willing to die for it, which is just laughable. But anyway, so obviously the fact of the matter is that this man is clearly compromised by the well-established network in place, facilitating drugs internationally, not only drug trafficking operations. This is the clandestine, system that has very much been in place for far too long, exploiting, really the geopolitical landscape to a level that is, again, to the average person, I don't think they're aware of just the strategic outcome of what has been achieved and what they're able to control at a level that, again, it's just, to have a network such as this in such a sophisticated way with so many plausible cutouts there's no real way to pursue accountability. Yeah, untraceable money, untraceable children. I mean, there's so much that is involved in these well-established networks that are very much just kind of offshoots of the intelligence apparatus that are functioning as these plausible deniability cutouts. And this is this has been the really just the clandestine playbook, right? And so again, you can point to Iran Contra. I mean, how many things do we have to point to I have to rewatch Interview with Monica Perez. It was jam-packed with so much info. Impressive. Thanks. Thank you. I absolutely love Monica. Anytime I ever get the opportunity to have a conversation with her, I'm very excited. So it was a great time. But yeah, not even just the 80s, which is so crazy. But yeah, definitely the 80s. Iran-Contra was a great example. But I mean, again, it's like I covered it with the Fort Bragg murders. You know, you go back to the late 60s, this 69, man. I mean, they were doing this for far too. This has to have been a product. It has to have been a product of you know the in my mind, you had these well-established rat lines in place. You had Operation Gladio, which set up these stay-behind networks where you could have this very well-organized system, functioning as one. Really, it basically metastasized into this, like, malignant cancer disrupting all of global society. Like, that's truly what it became. And by design, it was, how do we control the outcome despite who is in political office, no matter where they reside? And yeah, you think, I mean, they respect no international borders. This is a joke to them. So you think they really care about controlling the borders like that? They can, yeah, well, controlling the border, absolutely. But like, actually, in any sort of a good faith operational standpoint, where they're truly pursuing, the well, as far as just the best interest of the citizenry, of the sovereign citizenry, like, yeah, that's not happening, man. And again, these people, they don't live like the rest of us. They live in gated communities, right, far from public view and public access. All these consequential policies, who actually, unfortunately, deals with the direct consequence and result. I mean, it's obviously the underclass, as I would like to say. But yeah, Lovecraft knew stuff because he was one of them. I mean, H.P. Lovecraft was an occultist. They're all. She says, I never considered the fact that they would use the rat lines for other nefarious reasons. It's these kinds of common sense connections that are light bulb moments. Absolutely. 100%. And I didn't consider that either until I just stumbled across this conceptual reality that fell perfectly into place due to the corroborating details of the evidence that is out there, exposing this unholy alliance, as Paul Williams said. But obviously there's many more Gladio books and that I very much value and appreciate as well. But yeah, but understanding that overlap, the intersection where the intelligence apparatus meets organized crime, meets the fraternal organizations of powerful influence and the occult secret societies, that is the threat. That is the power paradigm very well in place for generations. And I mean, they conducted the killing of the king ritual in broad daylight in Dallas in 1963, and nobody did shit. Like, that's all I'm saying. Like, they accomplished that. Again, this is just like, I don't know. It's how are people under this impression that something changed and that we didn't remain on the same path since? And I'm not even saying that with JFK still in office, we would have somehow, remained on some sort of divine course of any kind. Obviously, I think the American dream was really a Rosicrucian mission, as I've said before, and was always some sort of intentional, inevitable American nightmare that would inevitably result. But hey, man, I think we've been sold a misconception as far as recorded history is concerned, and yeah, we need to remain skeptical at all times, and remind ourselves as well, we're not the vanguards of the secret knowledge. Like, and so therefore we don't have, as far as just the fundamental foundation in place to conceptually understand, right? It's like the Big Lebowski when Walter says to Donnie, "You're like a child who wanders into the middle of a movie," right? It's like that's how we all woke up in the middle of this shit. Like, what is going on? Trying to make sense of it. At least if you're not a member of the elite aristocracy and unelected bureaucrats, then yeah, that is where you reside. You're a permanent member of the underclass, whether you like it or not. So that's just an unfortunate reality that we must face together, or it becomes a very lonely place. But anyway, so I kind of got off base there, but the whole point here was that we were going to discuss this insane apparent election being stolen in Ecuador, and so apparently on the eve of the presidential runoff, you have Ecuador's U.S. NATO-backed incumbent suspended core. He apparently suspended core constitutional rights and unleashed the military across the country. The very next day, he's declared the winner, despite exit polls showing he lost and mounting evidence of electoral fraud. So, I mean, come on. MSM has effectively declared, so mainstream media obviously, that the incumbent, the winner, without question, while his opponent, Luisa Gonzalez, has not admitted defeat nor accepted the results. But now the large masses of people who find the elections invalid will have the military rain down on them if they mobilize. So now we break down a little bit of this gray zone article, and we will then, honestly, shit, man, I don't want to go too crazy long today because we have Already Dead tonight, and I'd like to, I basically streamed for 6 hours yesterday, so I need to do something. I have to go eat food. But anyway, so here we go. This is very interesting, and it is something that it's like this is how they install puppet regimes on the world landscape. And yeah, people have been telling the truth in fiction forever. It's predictive programming as well. It's asymmetric warfare. It's the mind war. It's psychological conditioning and social engineering. That is in every aspect. That truly is modern warfare. We find ourselves in the midst of an information war, and their ultimate goal and priority is to compromise the psychology of the average person to where they can't even they'll just perfectly embrace the inverted moral landscape. And yeah, man, 5th generation Aquino Fed Ops, 100%. And by the way, Project Monarch, we have to discuss. And I found this amazing kind of thread that is very worthwhile and and kind of tugging at and following through with. And so anyway, President Daniel Noboa appears to have stolen Ecuador's election. He's now poised to consolidate control of a system that has benefited cartels and multinational corporations, including his family business, at the expense of average Ecuadorians. And Washington likes what it sees. On April 13th, Ecuador's National Electoral Council proclaimed incumbent President Daniel Noboa the winner of the presidential runoff, a result that his challenger, the left-wing Luisa Gonzalez, denounced as massive fraud. If Noboa secures what appears to be an ill-gotten victory, he will be able to consolidate complete control over a state weakened by austerity and corrupted by deep infiltration by transnational drug cartels, a criminal network that is deeply enmeshed with his family's business. Gonzalez, who led several polls by up to 6 points as of Friday, has demanded a vote-by-vote recount. In doing so, she pointed to irregularities that included, but were not limited to, 18 polling stations in her strongholds being relocated at the last minute, bonuses paid in cash using IMF funds before the runoff, International Monetary Fund. Hey, man, that goes back to the IMF and the World Bank attempting to bribe, what was it? I'm trying to remember now, the Georgian official, I'll pull it up at a certain point, but they're bribing him in order to implement dystopian COVID policies, obviously. And then he outs them, and the NGO complex decides to, as he blows the whistle, stage a coup d'etat and a violent destabilization revolution in his country, as his country specifically, obviously, borders Ukraine. So that proxy asset is very well in reach as far as like moving strategic assets in place and positioning them for some sort of regime change operation, let's say. But no. Anyway, false positives of ballots that force the closure of polling stations. Fascinating earthquake strategy. There was an earthquake yesterday that right after I stopped streaming, they used the Monroe Doctrine to destroy South America. No doubt. War pigs, man. So, martial law imposed in 7 provinces favorable to Gonzalez. The denial of voting rights to all Ecuadorians residing in Venezuela. Noboa's illegal campaigning while in office in defiance of court orders. Andres Arauz, I don't know, a former presidential candidate and close ally of Gonzalez, presented copies of altered ballots showing irregularities and lacking the required validating signatures. These ballots were counted and somehow always favored Noboa. This could explain why the use of cell phone cameras was prohibited in polling places. These strange events mirror earlier complaints of fraud, which were clearly documented with photos and videos from the first round. Given Ecuador's enormous mineral wealth and the timing of the election outcome amid a global scramble for copper, oil, and rare earth metals, the country's already fragile sovereignty now hangs in the balance. Noboa plunges Ecuador into violence, cartel-tied corruption. Noboa's victory reflects the dominance of an elite rooted abroad. Born in Miami, the sitting president is the scion of a family empire embedded in a system of global capitalism and operating with complete impunity. I would say global crony capitalism. You know, obviously it's authoritarianism, it's totalitarianism, it's not the financial system that is represented by capitalist philosophy, at least free market. So anyway, you guys understand that. So as revealed in the Panama Papers, his family business includes Lanfranco Holdings, which was linked to 3 failed cocaine shipments to Europe. Noboa owned companies. Man, this is it, right? Like, this is it. This is exactly what they've been doing. We just described this system, and they're exploiting it in modern day, in real time. So Noboa owned companies owe $98 million in taxes to the country he now governs, and he has publicly stated that he doesn't intend to pay. Man, the privilege of the elites, huh? Noboa's tenure follows the neoliberal shift overseen by former presidents Lenin Moreno and Guillermo Lasso, who unleashed a wave of austerity on the country, hollowing out public services and state institutions while cooperating with Washington's national security agenda, most notably on the surrender of Julian Assange to British authorities. The weakening of the state, especially in marginalized areas, opened the door for cartel infiltration from ports to power structures. Ecuadorian investigative journalists Andres Duran and Anderson Bosson have methodically exposed links between the state and the cartels, which transformed Ecuador into a hub for drug trafficking and money laundering, while plunging its society into violence. But the journalistic duos reporting soon forced them to flee into exile. Reporting soon forced them to flee into exile to save their own lives, highlighting the risk dissenters face in Noboa's Ecuador. The infiltration of the Ecuadorian state reshaped the cartels, transforming them from monolithic transnational syndicates into a loose federation of specialized franchises that coordinate trafficking, weapons, and money flows. These networks now dominate Ecuador's fragmented, balkanized territory with minimal state resistance. The resulting atmosphere of violence and austerity keeps the population in a state of shock. To keep working class Ecuadorians, a strategy of tension, from seeking an alternative among the nationalists left represented by Gonzalez, they have invoked the boogeyman of socialist Venezuela as a cautionary tale, warning that any break from the neoliberal model imposed by Washington will lead to economic ruin. While mainstream media paints Noboa as a politically moderate fighting cartel hitman with a heavy hand, the facts on the ground are stark. 46 homicides per 100,000 people in 2023, 10,700 extortions in 2024, figures far worse than Venezuela under Maduro, and 220 tons of cocaine seized, most shipped from private ports, marking the rising trend of trafficking under his watch. These ports are overseen by Customs Intelligence Unit with a budget of just $5,677, according to journalist Andre Duran, against a drug trade worth millions, billions, or even trillions. That's right, just $5,677 to battle perhaps the largest transnational criminal network in the world. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, we could go through this at a much deeper level, but there's no real need. We understand. We made the point here. And it's very clear and obvious that this is, once again, a strategic outcome and obviously a manufactured puppet that was put into place due to his clear connections to the well-established system we've been discussing this entire episode. So once again, not at all shocked or surprised. So now we have the pleasure of introducing the Palantir AI military system, which understanding Peter Thiel and the role of Peter Thiel and kind of what he has to offer for the globalist framework. It's happening, and NATO officially acquires an AI system from Palantir to build this warfighting platform, which is already, it's called the Maven Smart System, and it's clearly basically this Palantir is the modern day operating system that can deliver transformative software as far as this Maven operating system. But understanding that this is an AI-powered military system, that basically the MSS Maven Smart System uses generative AI, machine learning, and large language models to provide commanders with a secure common operational capability and will be used to support ongoing NATO operations. Now, I believe it was Palantir had a huge pop. I think their shares climbed. Yeah, investing. So it was reported that the shares for Palantir climbed 5.3% following the announcement that NATO has acquired the company's AI-powered military system. The acquisition by the NATO Communications and Information Agency represents a significant step in bolstering the alliance's warfighting capabilities with advanced technology. Now, obviously, there's a huge track record that Palantir has providing military assistance in Ukraine and in the new, generated escalating conflicts within the Middle East as well, and there's also been much of a priority and pivot toward the engagement with China as well. So you have this, as far as especially with key and prominent defense industry leaders who are all essentially backed by Peter Thiel. And so I pulled up this this detailed article on Project Maven, right? Because this was basically the relationship of these big tech defense industry collaborations, including Google employees as well as Meta. 2018 uproar occurred against the company signing onto Project Maven for Google, and a Pentagon pilot program was the original Project Maven to improve AI-powered drone warfare, which Google punted after bad press and Palantir subsequently picked up. So a year later in 2019, now isn't that how it works, right? Oh no, we've had a public outrage, so here we'll send it into the private sector, our asset within the private sector. So yeah, within a year, Microsoft faced internal opposition towards accepting a defense contract with the U.S. Army, with staff writing in an open letter that we did not sign up to develop weapons, and we demand a say in how our work is used. So this is long-standing, and also just really kind of grasping, the Palantir software that gave Ukraine such an advantage, as far as like there was a strategic advantage with the drone capabilities, and so yeah, it's very unfortunate to witness this playing out. But this is all on the back of the Total Information Awareness Project, and it's all within, the construct of essentially this pivot to the overwhelming AI global infrastructure that they're attempting to embrace here as NATO acquires this system from Palantir, because the U.S. software company was, by the way, chaired by Donald Trump backer Peter Thiel, obviously, and strong Pentagon connections. The alliance's choice comes amid rising anxiety among European members over a potential U.S. withdrawal after Trump threatened to stop protecting the continent if capital. Oh my God! So this is exactly how you would. This is from the Financial Times, but this is exactly how you would continue a proxy war conflict with still maintaining some sort of credibility in the terms of claiming that you are negotiating in good faith and that you are unaffiliated and uninterested in the escalation or the conflict escalating in any real way, but then you trigger a plausible cutouts for the private sector to pursue those very same military interests, and then you have Europe, let's say, with what was that massive amount, 38 billion or 28 billion, I can't remember, that of military funding that they just provided to Ukraine specifically. So that goes to show this conflict will not be ending anytime soon. But so apparently, and by the way, keep in mind the system known as the Palantir Maven Smart System And as I had mentioned, the shares of Palantir increased 5.3% following the announcement, while the acquisition by the NATO Communications and Information Agency represents a significant step in bolstering the alliance's warfighting capabilities with advanced technology. The system known as the Palantir Maven Smart System, NATO, MSSNATO, will be employed within NATO's allied command operations to enhance various aspects of military operations. According to NCI General Manager Mr. Ludwig de Camps, the deployment of MSSNATO will provide customized state-of-the-art AI capabilities to the alliance, ensuring that forces are equipped with the necessary tools for effective and decisive action on the modern battlefield. That is, I mean, not looking good for the dystopian future. I mean, I feel like Skynet was a thing. I don't know. Uh, so, all I know, modern warfare looks terrifying, man. You see that footage from Ukraine of the solo mercenary or Ukrainian fighter or Russian fighter who will be like some sort of just scorched earth location with a vehicle smoking or just straight up like not even had been long destroyed and attempting to hide from the incoming drone that is just obviously just kind of tracking him and surveilling him at the and then all of a sudden, right? There's one specific clip that's coming to mind. You just watch him murdered in cold blood, essentially like begging the drone not to do it, and it's like, I don't know, for drone operators who claim they have PTSD, go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy, man. But to the distance, there's something immoral about that sort of warfare. But that's just me. That's how it feels. So these are obviously customized state-of-the-art AI capabilities that are now offered to Skynet for real. Yeah. That are now, perfectly in line with NATO's capability at this point. And so this ensures that forces are equipped with the necessary tools for effective and decisive action on the modern battlefield. The integration of MSSNATO into NATO's operations is expected to improve intelligence fusion and targeting, increase battlespace awareness and planning, and expedite decision-making processes through the use of AI applications, including large language models and machine learning. Sean Manasco, senior counselor at Palantir Technologies, emphasized the company's pride in supporting NATO's technological advancements and the alliance's commitment to leading in innovation. General Marcus Laubenthal, SHAPE's chief of staff, highlighted the operational value of the Maven Smart System NATO, stating that it enables the alliance to leverage complex data and accelerate decision-making, which is essential to their warfighting ability. The procurement process for MSSNATO was notably swift, taking only 6 months from the initial requirement definition to the acquisition of the system. The new system is expected to be operational within ACO in the next 30 days, marking a quick integration of this advanced capability into NATO's defense framework. My God. So we are there. We are in the dystopian future as far as military conflict is concerned in the age of modern warfare. So yeah, this is again, you're witnessing the special interest groups sort of being rewarded, right? Rewarded for the new kingmakers in town seem to be coming out of this very well, right? They're all being taken care of. So that is very much by design in my mind. But now let's see. We have I think one final real subject at hand that I would like to cover here before we kind of get out of here, because tonight we're going to have a really fun and exciting conversation with Dana from Rotting Jewels, and she's done such an amazing. She's just done such valuable work considering the Process Church and all the just extraordinary connections that interwoven all throughout, like the most scandalous events in modern recent history that changed the course of human civilization in a way that, yeah, it's. I'm telling you, you guys probably know by now that it just takes a certain amount of exposure to it before you can even you're even able to kind of put it into any real working terms that are yeah, it's a very difficult prospect to kind of conceptually outline how this power paradigm functions, but once you begin to kind of witness it playing out, man, yeah, it definitely should give you pause and cause you to remain skeptical at all times of anyone claiming to represent your moral principles and your ethical framework, right? Which is another reason why I inherently despise public representation. I refuse and reject it. Like, no, thank you. I assure you we will have a difference in opinion, but it's just a matter of time. It is a very imperfect system, and that should be clear on its face. So here we go. We introduced the Monarch project. Now, it's interesting because apparently we have years, right? There's this troubling rumors proliferating about mysterious U.S. government mind control program that's designed to convert multiple personality disordered children into spooks, spies, and killers. While investigating, yeah, Monarch mind control, guys. While investigating assorted atrocities in eastern Nebraska, the Franklin cover-up, investigator Andy Bohm uncovered considerable evidence attesting to the existence of this Manchurian Candidate Academy. There is no political solution. So, yeah, this individual, he's investigating these atrocities in Nebraska for the Franklin cover-up, and he discovers and uncovers this considerable evidence attesting to the existence of this Manchurian Candidate Academy, although it's located at Offutt Air Force Base near Omaha, home of the SAC. So the SAC is the Strategic Air Command, whose headquarters obviously was at Offutt Air Force Base. And yeah, it looks as if it was very much, a headquarters of Monarch to a certain extent. Yeah, man. John DeCamp's ties to the Phoenix program, it goes to show that I think a lot of this, especially the Monarch mind control aspect of, really a lot of it stemmed from Phoenix and the Phoenix program, because, again, I had mentioned before, this sadistic level of abuse and torture that they were pursuing it was trauma-based mind control. It was exactly how you create alters and MDD, multiple personality disorder. It's fascinating stuff, because it is truly how it's accomplished and achieved in a victim is through this sadistic form of abuse, and bestiality is a huge part of it, and that was very much included in no, probably not at all voluntary. Yeah, but he definitely knew about the sophisticated level of techniques that were being conducted at the time, and attempted to kind of, yeah. But anyway, it's the symbology of a phoenix. Yeah, very blatant, right? But still, you have this bestiality playing out, which is disturbing as hell. and a huge part of the Dutroux network as well, as far as the X dossier and that sadistic form of abuse. But anyway, so it looks like this Offwood Air Force Base, right? This Manchurian Candidate Academy was located here, and there are obviously Monarch graduates whose memories of a frighteningly bizarre education are neither repressed, recovered, or false, and they allude to this reality of being reprogrammed at the end of their abuse in order to essentially memory wipe them. Which, oh my God, that brings up something that I had just discovered recently. Oh yeah, absolutely use snuff in these experiments, and because they were showing the violent rape and death of it was legitimately what was happening in the X dossier. It was what was happening with Phoenix. So, but here's this crazy aside about Howard Hunt potentially. He so apparently, Hunt's he told this story of pursuing psychiatric care for his daughter Lisa, whose memory was mysteriously wiped clean in 1970, and then he was forced to retire from the CIA at that time. So it's like one of his many fake retirements. But that was a huge part of it. And that all came up within the covert operations context of the murder of the dictator in the Dominican Republic, which is just one of the craziest stories. But it goes to show how essentially you have this organized crime connection to, for example, Howard Hunt had extensive connections to organized crime. And all of these individuals who conducted the assassination are on the CIA payroll. And this was, of course, May 30th, 1961, when Trujillo was ambushed and gunned down with carbines and furnished from Langley. And obviously on the CIA payroll and the death squad detail were E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis. And so, yeah, it just goes to show that Hunt, with extensive connections to organized crime, especially in the National Syndicate, said to have been run by Seymour Weiss of the Standard Fruit Company, which was also the sponsor of the Guatemalan coup, and mafia kingpin Carlos Marcelo. So in 1958, Hunt organized this anti-communist conference in Guatemala, and the conference chairman was Antonio Valadores, Marcelo's attorney in New Orleans. So then what do you have? A connection where present at the meeting with Maurice Gatlin, whose office happened to be at 544 Camp Street, in the CIA, which was in the CIA shell game investigated by Jim Garrison as the base of operations for the Kennedy assassination. So that just goes to show. But I'm saying that obviously, I think that his daughter potentially had her mind wiped, essentially, which is kind of an extraordinary connection there. But anyway, here's what we are going to cover. Project Monarch, CIA, and Project Monarch. So, Ron Patton, he really did an amazing job on this. I was completely blown away. We'll cover it for a little bit, and then we'll essentially just have to kind of put a pin in it for later. But it starts where you would imagine: Nazi mind control. Amidst the subtle cerebral circumvention of the gullible populace through a multitude of manipulated mediums lies one of the most diabolical atrocities perpetrated upon a segment of the human race, a form of systematic mind control which has permeated every aspect of society for almost 50 years. To objectively ascertain the following: one may need to re-examine preconceived ideologies relating to the dualistic nature of mankind. Resolving the philosophical question of whether we are inherently good or inherently evil is tantamount in shaping our perception of reality, specifically the spiritual variable within the equation of life. This exposition is substantiated by declassified U.S. government documents, individuals formerly connected to the U.S. intelligence communities, historical writings, researchers knowledgeable in mind control, publications from mental health practitioners, and interviews taken from survivors unwittingly subjected to a highly complex form of trauma-based mind control known as Monarch programming. A word of caution for survivors of intensively systematic mind control and or some form of ritualized abuse. There are numerous triggers in this article. It is therefore recommended not to read it unless appropriate support systems are in place or if you have a thoroughly reintegrated personality. The mystery religions of ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and Babylon helped lay the foundation for occultism, meaning hidden knowledge. One of the earliest writings giving reference to occultism is the Egyptian Book of the Dead, a compilation of rituals explicitly describing methods of torture and intimidation to create trauma, the use of potions, drugs, and the casting of spells, hypnotism, ultimately resulting in the total enslavement of the initiate. These have been the main ingredients for a part of occultism known as Satanism throughout the ages. During the 13th century, the Roman Catholic Church increased and solidified its domain throughout Europe with the infamous Inquisition. Satanism survived this period of persecution, deeply entrenching itself under the veil of various esoteric groups. In 1776, a Bavarian Jesuit by the name of Adam Weishaupt was commissioned by the House of Rothschild to centralize the power base of the mystery religions into what is commonly known as the Illuminati, meaning enlightened ones. The Bavarian Illuminati. This was an amalgamation of a powerful occultic bloodline, of powerful occultic bloodlines, elite secret societies, and influential Masonic fraternities, with the desire to construct the framework for a new world order. The outward goal of this utopia was to bring forth universal happiness to the human race. However, their underlying intention was to gradually increase control over the masses, thus becoming masters of this planet. Then you have the Anglo Alliance. But all of this perfectly stages exactly what became the evolution of the Project MKUltra into the Monarch mind control. So the CIA decided to expand their efforts in the area of behavior modification with the advent of Project Bluebird. Approved by Director Alan Dulles in 1950, its objectives were to discover a means of conditioning personnel to prevent unauthorized extraction of information from them by known means. So also consider Reinhard Gehlen, who's very much involved in Gladio. And, it's obviously there's a profound influence there. And he helped create the National Security Council, from which the National Security Act of 1947 was derived. This particular piece of legislation was implemented to protect an unconscionable number of illegal government activities, including these clandestine mind control programs. So Project Chatter, this was, I believe, in the fall of 47, developed in response to the Soviet successes through the use of truth drugs. This rationale, however, was simply a cover story if the program were to be exposed. The research focused on the identification and testing of such drugs for use in interrogations and the recruitment of agents. So the project was then terminated officially in 53. But obviously, through Bluebird, another priority was investigating the possibility of control of an individual by application of special interrogation techniques, the psychic driving of Ewan Cameron. So now this is also a part of what Bluebird was attempting to do, because it was then renamed Artichoke as well, by the way, in August of 51. And evaluated offensive uses of interrogation techniques, including hypnosis and drugs. The program ceased in 56, 3 years prior to the halt of Project Artichoke. Now, MKUltra came into existence in 53 along the lines proposed by Richard Helms, Deputy Director of Central Intelligence, with the rationale of establishing a special funding mechanism of extreme sensitivity, basically. So the hypothetical etymology of MK may possibly stand for mind control. The obvious translation of the German word control into English is obviously a host of German doctors procured from the post-war Nazi talent pool were an invaluable asset toward the development of MK Ultra. The correlation between the concentration camp experiments and the numerous sub-projects of MK Ultra are clearly evident. The various avenues used to control human behavior under MK Ultra included radiation, electroshock. Various avenues used to control human behavior obviously included psychiatry, sociology, anthropology, harassment, substances, and paramilitary devices and materials. It's I think the name Monarch is very interesting because it's not obviously defined within the context of royal nobility, but rather it refers to the monarch butterfly, obviously. And when a person is undergoing trauma induced by electroshock, a feeling of lightheadedness is evidenced, as if one is floating or fluttering like a butterfly. There is also a symbolic representation pertaining to the transformation or metamorphosis of this beautiful insect from a caterpillar to a cocoon, dormancy, inactivity, to a butterfly, new creation, the new age esoteric aspect of occultism, which will obviously it's rising from the ashes in a way, right? It's the new age, what's it called? Damn it. Anyway, you get the point. But here's what I find very, very interesting in this context here, which is a marionette is a puppet that is attached to strings and is controlled by the puppet master. Hence, Monarch programming is also referred to as the marionette syndrome. Imperial conditioning is another term used, while some mental health therapists know it as conditioned stimulus response sequences. Project Monarch could be best described as a form of structured dissociation and occultic integration in order to compartmentalize the mind into multiple personalities within a systematic framework. During this process, a satanic ritual, usually including Kabbalistic mysticism, is performed with the purpose of attaching a particular demon or group of demons to the corresponding altars. Of course, most skeptics would view this as simply a means to enhance trauma within the victim. That is strange. I never heard the spiritual description of what is possible, negating any irrational belief that demonic possession actually occurs, right? But hey, you never know. Altars and triggers. Another way of examining. Yeah, I heard somebody put it in the context of being in a closed environment. I believe they were in prison, and they were forced to be around a sociopath, just a straight psychopathic killer, rapist, and that the person very much came off as grounded and sort of a normal in many ways. And then all of a sudden, there's a moment where the mask it just essentially falls off, and you see the shift in their eyes, and they turn into like beaded shark eyes, yeah, like sociopathic, unemotional. And I don't care who you are, you know, you pick up on the energy of another person, and it's kind of a strange thing, but I definitely, you can tell, right? There's some sort of energy and frequency that we bat back and forth in a closed environment, or in just in interacting physically. And yeah, there's obviously this is it, but it's very important to imagine this as a potential reality. It is possible. It is plausible to me. But another way of examining this convoluted victimization of body and soul is by looking at it as a complex computer program. A file, alter, is created through trauma, repetition, and reinforcement. In order to activate, trigger the file, alter, a specific access code or password, cue, or command is required. The victim survivor is called a slave by the programmer handler, who in turn is perceived as master or god. About 75% are allegedly female, since they possess a higher tolerance for pain and tend to dissociate easier than males. Subjects are used mainly for cover operations, prostitution, and pornography. Involvement in the entertainment industry is notable. A former military officer connected to the DIA told the author, in the big picture, tells him Ron Patton, that apparently, in the big picture, these people, Monarch victims, are in all walks of life, from the bum on the street to the white-collar guy. In corroboration, a retired CIA agent vaguely discussed the use of such personnel to be used as plants or chameleons for the purpose of infiltrating a designated group, gathering information, and/or injecting an ulterior agenda. There are an inordinate amount of alters in the victim survivor, with numerous backup programs, mirrors, and shadows. A division of light side good and dark side bad alters are interwoven in the mind and rotate on an axis. One of the main internal structures, of which there are many, within the system, is shaped like a double helix, consisting of 7 levels. The 7-fold path. What the hell? That's crazy. Each system has an internal programmer, which oversees the gatekeeper, who grant or deny entry into the different rooms. A few of the internal images predominantly seen by victim survivors are trees, the Kabbalistic tree of life with the joining root systems, infinity loops, ancient symbols and letters, runes, spider webs, mirrors or glass shattering, masks, castles, mazes, aliens, monsters, seashells, butterflies, snakes, ribbons, bows, flowers, hourglasses, clocks, robots, chain of command diagrams, and or schematics of computer circuitry boards. My God. Bloodlines and twinning. A majority of the victim survivors come from multi-generational satanic families, bloodlines, and are ostensibly programmed to fill their destiny as the chosen ones or chosen generations, a term coined by Mengele at Auschwitz. Some are adopted out to families of similar origin. Others, used in this neurological nightmare, are deemed as the expendable ones, non-bloodliners, usually coming from orphanages, foster care homes, or incestuous families with a long history of pedophilia. There also appears to be a pattern of family members affiliated with government or military intelligence agencies. Many of the abused come from families who use Catholicism, Mormonism, or charismatic Christianity as a front for their abominable activities, though members of other religious groups are also involved. Physical identification characteristics on victims survivors often include multiple electrical prod scars and or resultant moles on their skin. A few may have had various parts of their bodies mutilated by knives, branding irons, or needles. Butterfly or occult tattoos are also common generally. That makes sense. The butterfly tattoo on the Epstein victims. Generally, bloodliners are less likely to have the subsequent markings, as their skin is to remain pure and unblemished. Man, that's pretty amazing. The ultimate purpose of the sophisticated manipulation of these individuals may sound unrealistic, depending on our interpretive understanding of the physical and spiritual realms. The deepest and darkest altars within bloodliners are purported to be dormant. These levels of Monarch programming, alpha, regarded as general or regular programming within the base control personality, characterized by extremely pronounced memory retention, along with substantially increased physical strength and visual acuity. Alpha programming is accomplished through deliberately subdividing the victim's personality, which in essence causes a left brain, right brain division, allowing for a programmed union of left and right through neuron pathway stimulation. Beta programming, referred to as sexual programming. This programming eliminates all learned moral convictions and stimulates the primitive sexual instinct, devoid of inhibitions. Cat alters may come out at this level. Strange. Delta. This is known as killer programming. My God, man. Originally developed for training special agents or elite soldiers. Delta Force, 1st Earth Battalion, Mossad, etc. By the way, yeah, that's another huge detail, and we're going to have to do a deep dive exploring the reality of potentially members of Delta Force and the Green Beret, essentially the Green Berets as well. They could have been programmed sleepers and programmed with various different, as far as just, I was learning that essentially there is a shelf life for your programming, and that certain people will wake up based on their environmental impact and influence of certain individuals, key and prominent to them individually as a person. For example, I won't go too crazy on this, but yeah, there is some allegations made that Randy Weaver was a sleeper, and he had actually been programmed in this way during his tenure as a Green Beret, and that he was essentially he was rejecting his programming because of Vicky's influence, and that Vicky was strategically targeted, and that, yeah, I don't know, it could be entirely ridiculous, but I'm telling you right now, the level of detail, it gave me pause. It made me stop for a moment and question my reality, because that is what this does, right? I mean, it really truly should. I mean, at this point, what are we waiting for? I'm not certain of anything at this point. I'm very much, I'm realizing that there is such a deeper level of what they are capable of, that we have to reflect and ask that inevitable question once more: what are they capable of? What is possible in the world that we reside in? Honestly, but yeah, brother, I'm telling you, Bobo, we're gonna do something crazy on that second Waco episode, and it's all Jose's fault that I'm not talking about this right now. So. Because I definitely that would have been this entire episode, basically. But still, it would have been that in relation to Waco, with a tie-in with Dr. Lewis Jolyon West. But we won't talk about the mind bender himself right now. So we'll forego that conversation once more, and finish off with just a couple of additional details regarding this mind control Monarch programming, and yeah, then we'll just kind of get out of here. And well, it's behind the paywall till we're gonna, I think, drop it. Jose's probably gonna drop it on Friday, I think, the day before. We the anniversary, right? And so anyway, definitely, brother, check it out live. Well, I think we already scheduled it, but I forgot what day. Anyway, like the 15th or something. I can't remember now. Anyway, so I know we have like 3 things coming up. Like we're going to finish Watergate apparently one day, and then we will start a Dutroux series, because I think that will be perfect as well. It's very important. Plus, it'll give us an opportunity to kind of reflect back on many of the details and explore much more of the threads of evidence that I, don't have much of a opportunity to prioritize at all, often. But Yeah, that's the goal. We're definitely, our goal is to do something for OKC. It's supposed to be big, so yeah. Is the Watergate episode up? Because I didn't even realize, but we did it. We at least did it's not the finale though, unfortunately, guys. I'm sorry. I realized that about an hour in that wasn't gonna happen. But yeah, brother, for sure. I'll see you on Already Dead tonight, brother. But yeah, let's see. What else is there worth mentioning out of this before we put a pin in it and part ways? Well, it looks like there are potentially, obviously, these biomedical human telemetry devices, brain implants, obviously, directed energy lasers using microwaves or electromagnetic frequencies. Oh no, Dr. Robert Duncan was onto something, huh? Oh, what was it? Manchurian Candidate ID program free. It is reported these are used in conjunction with highly advanced computers and sophisticated satellite tracking systems. Say it ain't so. Starlink goes to Somalia. It sounds like a fucking movie. It's so stupid. But Omega programming, a self-destruct form of programming, also known as code green. The corresponding behaviors include suicidal tendencies and or self-mutilation. This program is generally activated when the victim survivor begins therapy or interrogation and too much memory is being recovered. That's why they do these memory wipes effectively, to destroy the ability to recount your abuse in any real, credible terms. But then you have gamma programming, another form. It is mind-blowing how sloppy. Gamma is another form of system protection, which it prioritizes deception programming. Wow, which elicits misinformation and misdirection. So this level is intertwined with demonology and tends to regenerate itself at a later time if inappropriately deactivated. Wow. That's very strange. Methods and components. Initial process begins with creating dissociation within the subject, usually occurring from the time of birth to about 6 years. This is primarily achieved through the use of electroshock and is at times performed even when the child is in the mother's womb. Due to the severe trauma induced through ECT, sexual abuse, and other methods, the mind splits off into alternate personalities from the core, formerly referred to as multiple personality disorder. It is presently recognized as dissociative identity disorder and is the basis for Monarch programming. Further conditioning of the victim's mind is enhanced through hypnotism, double bind coercion, pleasure pain reversals. I'm getting electronically harassed. Hey, dude. They could pull up outside your house and target you with electromagnetic frequencies. It's a reality, and I have, man. There's an account that correlates to that story I was mentioning, and regarding Waco and Randy Weaver, and yeah, it's just about an individual who potentially is like, what they had a nickname for him. What he was an old spook who had accomplished a very sophisticated level of utilizing these techniques to such an extent to where they claimed that, from afar he could effectively control your mind. So hey, the way that it was put into detail, it honestly it added credibility in my mind. We'll discuss it at a certain point. But obviously, further conditioning involving, not only the pleasure pain reversals and all the other techniques I mentioned, but food and water and sleep and sensory deprivation, along with various drugs which alter your certain cerebral functions. Now, the next stage is to embed and compress detailed commands or messages within the specified alter. This is achieved through the use of high-tech headsets in conjunction with computer-driven generators, which emit inaudible sound waves or harmonics that affect the RNA covering of neuron pathways to the subconscious and unconscious mind. That's why they said they could program you with subliminals in your sleep. Holy shit. Virtual reality optical devices are sometimes used simultaneously with the harmonic generators, projecting pulsating colored lights, subliminals, and split screen visuals. High voltage electroshock is then used for memory dissolution. All right, man. I'm out of here, dude. They shocked my taint. What the fuck? My God, guys. Been on the wrong chat. Come on, Gerald. What the hell, dude? Yeah. So that was pretty fascinating, and we still have much more we could cover, honestly. But at this point, we got to get out of here, man. I got to go eat breakfast. I got to go do a workout or something and then get my shit together for tonight's interview with Dana. So I'm very excited to talk about the process at a deeper level. But yes. Oh, great, man. Yeah. Well, Whitney Webb's piece on Jamie Dimon is amazing. Yeah. Oh, of course, the real John Doe. No problem, brother. All right, guys. I definitely got nothing but love for you. You know this. Yeah, get your ass in there tonight, man. For sure. But nothing but love, guys. You know, if you can in any way support me, the patreon.com/the underclass podcast, the best way to do so. Beyond that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Thank you. Hey, say what now? You're my brother. I love you guys. You know, if it weren't for you, I would be shouting into the ether all of this extraordinary nonsense. And honestly, I would have no real sense of worth, because at the very least, it's like the pursuit of objective truth. That in itself, it seems to provide some sense of, just like I'm actually, I feel like this group of like-minded individuals, we're not trying to delude ourselves and fill this God hole with some new age esoteric ideological system of control, man. We fuck that, and fuck the feds. You're exactly right. I love you too, JMS. And but yeah, we have to do something that, it's the very least will be spiritually fulfilling, because that's really what it boils down to. People are in the midst of an identity crisis, worshiping the feet of false prophets. They can't make sense of the world around them. They're embracing this inverted moral landscape, and that's all by design. It's the mind war in action. It's what it's designed to achieve. So, try and look at their underlying intention. That's kind of how I try and assess the moral framework of a person, and how much they are worthwhile or worth my time, because I think that's another thing. It's like, man, as much as I hate to say it, I just kind of, it's like, some conversations just aren't worth having. You know what I mean? And people will only be able to kind of get to that same place on their own time, through their own journey, through their own path. They have to be exposed. They have to expose themselves to this knowledge and information. It's why it is the hidden, it's the, it's definitely the path less traveled, right? It's the path of least resistance. It's the best way to put it. And but hey, we found each other at least, huh? And it's no longer as lonely as it once was, because that is the worst part, is being fundamentally alone in your ideas and not being able to pursue and practice your principles on a daily basis. And that's what we should attempt to achieve for our own well-being and for our own families. Because otherwise, we're just going to lose our minds, probably just trying to assess the next step of this totalitarian agenda. But anyway, all right, guys, I'm out of here. I love you guys, and I'll catch you on Already Dead tonight. I hope you have a good rest of your Tuesday. And man, I think whatever. I'll see you guys tonight. Nothing but love.